Whether you've been filming for 5,000 years or making films for just 5 minutes, you would be amazed at how no matter how experienced you are, no matter how long you've been doing this, John, the best shot ideas may not always come from you. And in this thrilling second installment of a little series we call Good Shot versus Bad Shot, we're going to dive into a short film that I made years ago when I first started my quote-unquote professional filmmaking journey and show you why this shot is way better than this shot, and it's actually one of the best lessons you could learn in your entire filmmaking career. Alright, so what is this film? This is a film called What's Done Is Done, and it was an entry made years ago, back in like 2017, for something called Campus Movie Fest. Now, the catch to the making of this film, as you can see my glorious face as one of the lead talent. Because I wasn't a student anymore, I couldn't be the director or the DP. So, my buddy Zach, who has never, and I mean never, touched a friggin' camera in his life, was up to the challenge. So he and I thought together of a little storyline, and I showed him the ropes of shooting good cinematic video, and this is what he came up with. Sure, I gave him some guidance and some tips and maybe something to think about in his shots, but overall, this is his concoction. And I thought it would be cool to look at something that isn't one of my more modern films, where I'm using these big, awesome cameras and really clean cinema glass, and sometimes I have a crew, or our G&E and cinematography and lighting and framing skills are just off the hook. Instead, I think it'd be really cool to look at a film where I was still learning and taking something that is very unpolished and trying to get some education out of it. Because whether you shot it last week or you shot it 15 years ago, there's always something to learn from it. And fun fact, that bad shot, that was all me, baby. That was all my idea. The good shot, 100% Zach's idea. This is all leading to that really crucial, important part I was talking about in the intro, but first off, let's talk about why this shot in particular is the bad shot. First off, it's not in focus. But in the name of cutting someone a friggin' break and trying to pull focus on a little tiny Panasonic GH4 monitor on single glass at a 1.8, alright, we weren't in the best case scenario here. But fundamentally, rather than just be like, oh, this looks like let's actually talk about what's actually kind of wrong with the shot. For starters, let's start with the thing I always start off with any shot, whether I like it or hate it, and that is perspective or presence. And our presence and perspective with the character right now just feels, simply put, off. In a moment like this, where the drama is very heightened and we're in one of the more climactic decisions that our actor, or me, the character, has to make in this moment in the film, it feels weird to come from this angle, especially since we almost get no detailing from the eyes whatsoever because I'm keeping them shut and low for the most point. There's plenty of worlds where shots like this, real close up and coming from the side or even coming from lower, are really going to improve the effect of being in the situation with this character. But right now, it kind of just feels like we're just looking down at the person just to look down at the person because we thought that's the angle. But overall, this shot just feels out of the way. I don't feel an attachment with this character. I don't feel like I'm even bearing witness to the scenario they're in or having any kind of emotional or mental impact or, quite frankly, any relation to audience to talent right now. It's completely just a random bit of coverage. Now, if you checked out my last video where I talk about what I look for in certain shots, I bring up the idea of making sure you get your inserts to spice up the coverage and the editing. Let's make something very clear. Coverage of your talent and getting your inserts are two wildly different things. We did not need this shot upon looking at the effect it's giving, and just getting coverage for the sake of just getting coverage is complete wasted effort. If it doesn't play with the edit, or it doesn't give you the sense of presence from a different perspective for the moment your talent's going through, it's a pointless shot. The other problem is the layering. Off the top of the dome, most filmmakers or DPs or people trying to teach you stuff online are probably going to tell you that putting background depth behind your character is going to give you a sense of, well, just that depth. Sometimes depth is just clutter. And that's exactly what's going on here. And remember, this shot was my idea. And in my head, I can recall thinking how, the way the light's hitting the table in the back here, the way the couch is right there, and there's like kind of a mess in the backdrop. It's telling a story. But to be honest, there's nothing about the clutter and the layering back here that tells any significant story whatsoever. And if we're also talking it from a proximity aspect, all of these things are way too close to each other to be justified as layered elements to give a sense of depth in the room. It feels like I'm practically eating this end table here, and that couch being right on top of it just creates this claustrophobic feel that isn't that really honest to the space that we were filming in, and it's kind of unnecessary. I actually think if we cleaned up the chair here and moved out whatever's on top of the chair and actually moved out the nightstand, I actually think we improved the shot a little bit here. And we're shooting this on a crop sensor on a Sigma 18-35, but after even the magnification, that 35 mil is playing more like a really tight 50 or even a 60 mil. So all of our elements are really getting just squished together in this already kind of clunkily layered composition we've got going on here. So everything is just way too close to each other and is kind of interfering with our perspective of the talent. The lighting. I'm not really going to dive into the exposure of the window here. I don't mind too much of a window clip so long as it's a soft clip, but you got to remember this is old tech we're using here, so we're moving on the fly, so you got to do what you got to do when you're working with natural light. The real issue here is subject placement. When you're battling natural light and window light, it can truly be the best weapon in your arsenal, but your subject placement becomes the most important thing now in your abilities as a cinematographer, and the subject placement here is simply not good. I am now leaning out of a place where that window lighting is giving me the most effective light, because instead what I'm getting is very low values on the face, and sure, I'm getting stuff like a Rembrandt, I'm getting soft light on the face, but the most powerful part of the lighting is actually in the back of my hair here, and it's creating this kind of muddied haze effect that draws all the attention from the face straight to the back of my head. In fact, there's a way better exposure on the bullet in my finger in this shot that kind of draws my attention to that instead. Now, to fix up shots like this, what you should be doing is making sure that, one, the window isn't playing with your subject in a way where it's going to just lose them in a certain haze, unless you're going for a flare and something in your fun coverage gives you like a cool look with the flaring and the halation and the hazing and the pops of light that ping the lens. That's one thing. But in a moment like this, it's just simply distracting. If we had moved myself back a little bit and cheated the angle a little more to let a little more of that reflective light come over my face, we would get a much better exposure on my schnoz here. And with a better exposure on my face, we could probably crank up the ND a little more to get better exposure on the window as well. So by just pushing me back, we can effectively fix two things in the lighting, because the rest of it I enjoy. I like the reflections on the wood, on the couch here. I like the way it reflects off the metal of the bullet and my fingernails and things like that. Those are great. It's just the fundamentals of lighting the subject here that are a little jacked up. Now, moving on to what I consider the good shot in this example, which I preface this again. This was the first time that my guy Zach had ever touched a camera that wasn't his iPhone. I had advised him to get that shot beforehand that we talked about, because I think I was just in a heavy profile phase. I don't know, it felt moody, it felt edgy, it felt like an intriguing angle. But then he said, can we get more one from the front? And he took the camera and framed this up and showed me, and this is great. And from the man who had touched the camera for just one day prior, we can learn a lot from this shot, comparing it to the shot that it's cut with. And we'll go through the same things that we said didn't work for the last shot that 100% worked for this one. First and foremost, it's that presence we were talking about. We are right smack dab in whatever the hell this character's doing. Me in my Razzie giving performance here is on full display. And not even just from the sense of like, oh, because I can see more of the actor, I now get a better sense of presence. Well, that's kind of true in some sense, but I'm now more in line with the eyes. I can experience the movement of the eyes. This kind of eye level shot that's just below the horizon gives me a great perspective of the eyes leading into what I'm looking at, and it's an excellent use of this slightly more compressed focal length that we're getting, but we're still getting shoulders, we're getting my forehead, we're getting some background. It's like we're really sitting with our character here in order to really immerse ourselves into this climactic moment of the film. Basically, we're just giving our audience the best chance to feel something from the shot here. With the other change, you gotta fight for that feeling as the audience member. You do not have to do that with this angle. Now, slight improvements you can make with a shot like this. I think nowadays I would probably go for a slightly wider lens and back up just a tad. I would be curious to see how this plays on something like a full frame sensor with like a 40mm lens, like I've been kind of doing lately, but as is, this still works, and I still would probably do a shot like this today. Now that second part, depth. Now you could say the lamp back there could be a little distracting, but in my eyes, this is way less cluttered. This is far more of an attempt at actually separating a character from the backdrop. And to be quite honest, some people might look at the backdrop here and just be like, this is just a white wall. Who cares? It's boring. Well, guess what? Remember how I said that thing about depth just for the sake of getting depth? Allow me to offer this as the antithesis. When I want to experience really dramatic parts of a film or a singular moment where me as the director decides, shut up and look at this one particular thing. Don't worry about the depth in the background, the random painting on the wall, the specular highlights, the little bokeh balls or the flaring in the background. Don't look at anything else but this man staring at a bullet. And by keeping a very clean background, minus that friggin' lamp, whatever, you only push that sense of isolation that you want your audience to be in with this character, that nothing else matters in the frame but this man's face, his eyes, and the thing he's making eye contact with. Which when you cut into the follow-up shot of the bullet close up in my hands, there you go. And because we pushed me away from the wall a little bit, the wall falls out of focus. So if the plain white wall was more in focus, sure. I wouldn't think that's great, but that's why we use depth of field and push and pull me away from the wall to help alleviate that quote unquote boring distraction. Now, the third thing, and it's probably the biggest improvement, is that damn lighting. This to me is a contrast ratio that I would go for by my standards today. It's super moody, it's super dramatic, but there's a lovely sense of kind of like high-key reflective lighting smacking the side of my face, but we're still getting a Rembrandt. We're not blowing out too much of the facial structure here. We're not getting a catch light, but as I've said in a prior video, I don't care. And we're even getting a small hit of that window lighting hitting my back right shoulder, your left, that's pushing me off that backdrop a little more. It's giving me that pop, it's edging me out, it's not having me completely fall into the darkness here, even though we get really, really dark on the right side, your left of my face. And of course, that little subtle highlight pop on the bullet here is doing exactly what cinematographers should be doing, using lighting to help guide the audience towards the thing they should be experiencing, which is my eye and that little shiny bullet there. That little highlight pop does a ton to really let that sing on its own. And might I remind you, this entire scene is lit by just the window that's to the right of the frame. That is it. Not a single light or anything was used to light me in this shot. And the most important thing we can pull from this shot, if we're being totally honest here, it's going back to that fact that this is a guy's first attempt at filmmaking. And he approached this from a way that I think more filmmakers need to start approaching their shots. And that is simply lining up a shot that they would want to see in a movie. I think it's really easy as we grow in our technical skills and our abilities as filmmakers and the years and years go on that we have this idea of perfection that's pretty much cemented in our heads that has to happen on the monitor before we can walk away from the shot. More importantly, it can kind of distract us from really beautiful things that can happen in simplicity or when we start stripping away certain perfections. With somebody like Zach, he's not bogged down by the millions of hours of YouTube videos he's watched on composition and why certain lighting ratios are that important. He hasn't been trying to copy, other cinematographers or understand the finer nuances of lensing and cameras and sensors. He's just simply moving the camera around until he finds a look, a shot, and a lighting that would be in a movie that he would want to watch on Netflix or on the big screen. And that's just it. It is such a simplified but important approach to filmmaking that I think a lot of us are forgetting. And if I'm directing a project or it's in my baby or I have a lot of control as the DP, I am not hitting record if it looks like something that I wouldn't click on if I saw it on a Netflix thumbnail or if I saw it playing on the big screen. Which is funny because the shot we use is a bad shot. I would hate to see that on the big screen. I would never click on that thumbnail. I would never see that in a teaser and be like, hell yeah, I can't wait to watch that. This shot I would though. It's got the mood, it's got the shape, it's got the presence. I'm not saying that you need to take all of the technical knowledge and just toss it out your head. What I am saying is that we got to remember that we have these technical skills more for problem solving, more for little pops of intrigue, and to take us to a certain level, a certain plateau, if you will. We shouldn't be using that technical skill to get the foundational elements of what we're doing. That should just be simply our eyes and our tastes. And approaching films like this with this idea of just getting something I want to watch in a movie is the best way to start nailing our fundamentals. The composition, the presence of the character to the lens and the camera, the lighting, and of course, does the shot make freaking sense for the story? The bad shot didn't. This shot does. And I'm proud that this film is in my repertoire of things I did that helped me become the filmmaker I am today. Now, if you think that the other shot has some value or there's some other things you're thinking about with the good shot, please go wild in the comments. I'd love to hear the conversations. The last good shot, bad shot we did, the comments were alive and well, and I think people actually walked away with some decent knowledge. Or you could be like some of the other people and say both the shots suck, your composition sucks, and blah, 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 they learn nothing. Those are my favorite. My absolute favorite. Man, you think turning 30 would harden you up to be ready to make a YouTube channel and be ready for the wild west that is the internet. It did not. And yet, here I am. Because I love you friggin' people. But if you want to chat more about these and you want to start seeing more of these good shot, bad shot videos, light up the comments, people. Well, I think that's enough me ranting for one day. Thank you for enjoying a little blast from the past from me, going through another good shot, bad shot video. This has been Davis with the Sick Shop. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.